Hello everybody, this week on the channel I decided to change things down a bit and so contacted Dacia to ask them if they would send me the cheapest press car on their fleet. Having now lived with it for a week, I can tell you it's been something of a surprise because it turns out that cheap cars aren't what they used to be. So then, what is it I've been enjoying the company of all week? Well, it's this, the Dacia Sandero, now in its third generation, and it's a car that's known to most of us as being just about the cheapest new vehicle you can buy in Britain with 4 whole wheels. So, my first surprise then, the price. How much do you think one of these would set you back? 8 grand? 9 grand? 10? Well, this is £15,500. That number, in fact, came as such a shock to me, I had to check and make sure my mind wasn't playing tricks on me, and it turns out it wasn't, because back in 2020, you could buy a version of this car for just $7,995. Granted, that was the base access version, which precious few people actually bought, and I suspect existed mostly as a marketing gimmick. It did without painted handles, electric rear windows, even painted front and rear bumpers, aircon, and a whole bunch of other stuff I think modern buyers deem an essential. In any case, you really could buy a brand spanking new car for just $7,995. Now, no longer. In fact, the cheapest version of this, the Sandero, the lowest cost car in the Dacia lineup, is now $13,795. But though the Sandero is no longer Britain's cheapest car full stop, it remains one of the most affordable in its segment. And good news, these are a far cry from the cheap cars of my youth. So even the most basic car comes in with painted bumpers, front and rear, electric windows, air conditioning, and you've even got such luxuries as Bluetooth and DAB radio. This one is the Expression trim, just £1,000 more at $14,795, and for that you do get quite a bit more money, including rear parking sensors, rear camera, rear electric windows. You've also got an 8-inch touchscreen giving you Android Auto and Apple CarPlay functionality. There is even keyless entry and go, all included in that price. In fact, the only option on this car is the metallic blue paint at about £650. Yes, the interior is still basic. If you were a cow living next door to the Dacia factory, I think you'd feel fairly safe. However, the company's slogan is they give you everything you need and nothing you don't. And I have to say, that is personified by this car. You could get the slightly beefier, crossover-looking Sandero stepway, which I'm told is a big seller. But to me, that defeats the point entirely. As far as I'm concerned, this really is all the car anyone would ever need. I do have plenty of gripes. The interior controls could be just a little nicer. The phone holder is just so cheap and flimsy, it feels like I'm going to break it every time I use it. There isn't even an auto button for the HVAC controls, and the ones you have all do feel like they've been stolen from a van from 1995. However, there is just about enough space for 4 adults or 5 at a push. The boot is a good size too, and you have to bear in mind this, even at the now slightly higher price of 15 and a bit grand, is still roughly in line with a mid-spec Kia Picanto, a car that is at least a class, maybe class and a half, smaller. And you know something, I'm even impressed with the styling. No, I don't think it's ever likely to win an award. However, I've parked this in a number of town centres where it's been next door to any number of faceless VAG products, and it blends in perfectly. At no point in time have I turned around and looked at it and gone, yeah, that does look like a cheap car, doesn't it? In fact, just about the only giveaway this is a budget-conscious model are these 15-inch steel wheels, but complete with alloy-styled full-coverage caps and Bridgestone tyres. That's not so bad, and I'm sure these are of some benefit to the particularly careless driver who does like to curb a wheel fairly frequently. But what about those of us who care about the art of driving? Does the Sandero have much for us? Well, it turns out that it does. I know on paper this may not sound like a particularly petrol-head-friendly recipe. Here in the UK, the Sandero is currently available with one of just 2 engines. Each is a 3-cylinder, 1-litre turbo, the sole difference being that one is petrol and the other is LPG. This one is the pure petrol and it produces a mighty 90 horsepower and 140 newton meters of torque. That's just over 100 pound-foot. Curiously, the bi-fuel actually makes marginally more power, another 10 horses for a nice even 100. Both of them are then connected to a simple 5-speed manual gearbox that drives the front wheels. There is no automatic option, there is no all-wheel drive option, that's it. In keeping with the Dacia ethos of giving you everything you need and nothing you don't, the front brakes are discs and the rears are drums. There's even a strange and unusual device between the front seats that may be unfamiliar to some of my younger viewers. Us old farts call it a handbrake. Just in case you weren't aware, Dacia are an offshoot of Renault, created a number of years ago to fill what I think is a very important need: low-cost transport for the masses. So while everybody else is trying to go upmarket and create ever more expensive EVs, it's really good to see a manufacturer out there which is committed to basic meat and potatoes motoring. And I think it's for that reason that I've fallen so in love with this. Perhaps the biggest surprise for me on the spec sheet was actually the chassis. On account of their connection to the company, many Dacia models have been born out of previous generation Renaults. That's one of the ways they've managed to keep the costs down. But this new Sandero is in fact built on the same platform that underpins the current Clio, although in a special Dacia-fied low-cost version. What exactly they've changed, I do not know. In real time, just an hour ago, I was driving a 300 plus horsepower, 4-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic BMW M135i xDrive. And that was proof to me of just how inherently right the Dacia is. Of course, the BMW was measurably quicker. I think even the most optimistic of road testers would struggle to come to any other conclusion. Inside, of course, the BMW was also a big step on, not just in terms of technology, but also quality of materials. This actually feels, I think, far better than I expected it to. And my only real gripe with the interior of this car is this stuff, this sort of weird black and white fabric that's just about everywhere. It is very abrasive, but more than that, if you have young people in this car, or dogs, it's not going to be the easiest to clean if they make a mess of it. I think it would be good to see a sort of vinyl or leatherette option for the interior for those that need something a little easier to clean. Sadly, this is the one and only choice that you have. The dash is nice, clear, easy to read, and I have to say it's actually a delight to have something where the speedo doesn't go to over 200 miles an hour. The central display then tells me everything I need, nothing I don't, and the 8-inch touchscreen over here works just fine. I haven't been able to test Android Auto with it, but that is because my phone is utterly rubbish, USB-C is a terrible design, and now no cables will connect to my phone. Yes, I have cleaned the port out, no, it hasn't made a difference. Oh, I did notice one other nice little feature. The car appears to have a takeaway hook, which I think everything should, from Dacias to F40s. Visibility is good, not great. The A-pillar at the base particularly is quite chunky, and the B-pillar is a little further forward than I would like it, but in all honesty, compared to just about anything else modern, it's not really any worse or any better. All of the controls are nice and light, very easy to modulate. The clutch and gearbox in particular are fantastic, and so I think this would make an excellent first car. Beyond hill hold assist, there isn't really anything in here to flatter a poor driver, but neither is there anything to unduly punish one that's trying to do their best. But to me, the real party piece of the Dacia, you can take your child out in it, teach them all the fundamentals of driving. Grandma can borrow it, take it to the shops. It's got everything that she would need, just about enough space for her, her friends, a parking sensor at the back to hopefully keep her out of trouble. But then, when you've got the car back, you're driving home, you find yourself on your favourite piece of road, and there's nobody around, you can drop a cog and have a lot of fun. It may not have fancy pants, 5-way traction control. In fact, you can't even turn the traction control off. nor does it have super duper brakes, trick, multi-link, double wishbone suspension or adaptive dampers. Instead, what it's got is just a pure, simple and honest approach to motoring. Yes, there's only 90 horsepower here, but it's also got less than 1100 kilos to cart around. Load it up with people and yes, you will notice the car does struggle, but certainly when you're on your own, it's got more than enough pace to have quite a lot of fun. And even with this electric steering that's maybe not the most communicative, they changed it a few years ago, it's still got just enough weighting to give you an idea of what's happening with the chassis, and the car still has a decent amount of lean in it, giving you a pretty good idea of exactly how much you're asking from it. I struggle to think of the last time I drove a car to what I know was its limit in any sort of way that didn't feel completely and totally reckless. This loves it. It's an absolute joy. I have been driving the wheels off this thing at every given opportunity, and it has been a total delight. I love the fact that on the first day I got it, I drove 460 miles all the way up to Scotland on one tank of fuel. It's got a 50-litre tank and it averaged 52 to the gallon. It wasn't even that uncomfortable. I got out of the car 9 hours later, not feeling all that bad. The aircon, as and when it's needed, is icy cold. I've got it disabled at the moment for every single spare horse that I can get. And the car was a far better tourer than I expected it to be. Sure, the speakers are a little bit naff, and because my phone is rubbish, I wasn't able to use Android Auto. But still, it did the job, and did it well. Then, when I arrived at my destination and I had to ferry a few people about, it had more than enough space in it for doing all the stuff that you'd need any car to do. And then, when I found myself on some of my favourite roads, I had lots and lots of fun. Though the headline power figure is not really anything to write home about, because it's a turbo, it'll give you what it has fairly early on. So even from 2,000 to 3,000 RPM, the car responds with actually a little bit more than you might expect. There is an element of turbo lag, but not really ever anywhere near enough to give you problems, and even in first gear, giving it the absolute big one, traction has been generally fine. I'll note it's been dry this week, but I think even in the wet, you're not exactly going to struggle. It is, as the company promises, everything you need and nothing you don't. How's the turning circle? Oh, that's pretty good too. So then, should you rush out to the shops and buy one? Well, that's a little bit more complicated, because from the moment I got the car, I did notice there were a few issues. First off, and this relates of course to this specific car, the steering wheel was not correctly aligned. The car also had a warning telling me the tyre pressure monitoring system needed to be reinitialized, which I did. I have also noticed that there must be somewhere a slightly loose piece of bodywork, because on occasion you get to 60 miles an hour and you get that very distinctive sort of of something being loose. It may have broken free now because I haven't heard it in a couple of days. I mention this because this is a press car. This is supposed to demonstrate just how good these cars can be, and I always find it disappointing when they're delivered with basic issues like that. It shows to me a general lack of attention to detail, and when we're talking about the press fleet here, I can only assume that customer cars are going to be at least like that, if not potentially worse. That's a shame. In the last few days, the car has also developed a worrying number of creaks and rattles, including from the speaker grills up here, which I checked and they don't actually appear to be correctly fixed in place. And these, I'm sure, sound like the minor gripes that I assure you they are. However, there is a much bigger problem for the Dacia Sandero. I talked earlier about this car's rather surprising price, £15,500 as you see it here. And I'm sure a few of you have already thought, yeah, but that's not really an issue, because the point of a car like this is not to buy it new for cash, but instead to finance it at a relatively low rate. And that is how you justify buying this, as opposed to, say, a used car for £3,000 or £4,000, taking then the risk that it may go wrong and you'll have to pay to fix it. In terms of warranty, Dacia will give you 3 years and 60,000 miles, which is, again, okay, but pales in comparison to the 7 years of Kia, the 5 years of Hyundai, and the 10 years of either Toyota or Lexus, though I suspect not many people are cross-shopping a Dacia with a Lexus. In any case, I think the big and potentially deal-breaking issue for this car is the fact that over the last few years, not only has the cash price gone up, but so has the finance. I recall not that long ago, you could walk into a dealer with £99 in your pocket, and for that and £99 a month, you could get a brand new car. Not anymore. This, should you want to buy it, will cost you, according to Dacia's sample finance, £2,000 as a deposit and near £200 a month. That's for a paltry 6,000 mile a year lease. And that is a lot, isn't it? More, I wager, than many people would probably want to pay out for a car like this. Which is a shame, because creaks, rattles and slightly off steering wheel aside, I genuinely like this car. But if you're on the hunt for affordable transport and you must have something new, I think I would urge you to try one of these, but also consider a few other options that might initially seem like they'll cost a little bit more, but over the long run could work out as better value. So then, that is my review of the Dacia Sandero, and I'm very pleased to say it has been actually quite a nice surprise. I want to say a big thank you to them for lending it to me, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.